So it's time to start today's webinar in our PLM for medical device development webinar series. Today's topic is complaints and adverse events reporting. So it's breakout of subset of the functionality of the quality processes, and we do this in order to be able to cover that particular topic in more details. So and introduce you to the past webinar series. We've been running this now since quite some time. We started off with an introduction in November and then covered some core topics, especially the design controls and quality processes. At the end of November, we went through the details of control documents, how to prove control documents of any kind, typically standard operating procedures and similar documentation. After this, we focused and gave an overview on regulatory affairs related topics, which is primarily the compliance status, whether it's the FDA compliance or product compliance or materials compliance, and the submissions, so the regulatory filings, either it's pre-market approval or the 510Ks or the setup of the technical files or dossiers for the European market. And with that, we also mentioned the new parts related to the unique device identifier. The latest session before this was on materials compliance, so covering RoHS REACH conflict minerals proposition 65. But today we go into depth about complaints management and the related topic, the generation of MDRs or MDVs, so adverse events reporting, how they are connected. So with complaints, it's crucial with regards to both European and US legislations that we track any complaints or any feedback from patients or our customers, and take those back into our own organization and take them back into our own product development process. And that's really the essence, to track the feedback we receive from our customers. Make sure that that feedback is managed properly. So if there are reasons for acting upon that feedback, whether it's from the sales organization or from the services maintenance organization, from field engineers to whoever is providing input, we need to have a clear route of action, how we are to collect that information and how we are to channel that information. There are specific guidelines and regulations dictating how we are to respond, and obviously if the event is severe enough, we need to act with the appropriate measures, typically a CAPA or filing a report to the FDA or the Läkemedelsverket or whoever we're reporting to at our relevant markets. Additionally, and that's the priority typically of regulatory bodies, is of course to make sure that there is a given procedure, how we are to act if there is a complaint, but also that we give an event the appropriate attention, both from a management perspective as well as a resource perspective and development perspective, to make sure that if there are adverse events, the relevant people with the appropriate responsibility should be aware of these events and should also be forced to make a decision if the issue is reoccurring. So this is really essential, and it's essential since a long time for the medical device legislation. Really what these modules are about, having them within the PLM suite, is that they are present in whatever we do. So when we started off this webinar series, we presented the different aspects of a product development. The circle number 1 here is the product definition. The circle number 2 is the compliance status, and the circle number 3 is how it affects our ongoing development projects. And really what we want to make sure here is that complaint status, if they are severe enough, should be present in all our activities in product development. If there are new complaints coming up, if they are severe enough, it should be present. It should be present on our product status. It should definitely be visible on our compliance status, indicating that we're not compliant or that we need to act. And of course, it should be matched with our change projects, and potentially it should be channeled through our product development projects to make sure that they're taken care of properly. So that's how it comes into the development organization. And we'd say this is, of course, standard practice in the industry. It's really part of the core QSR at any device development organization. But what we want to make sure when we build these kind of processes into PLM is, of course, that it really is part of every aspect of product development, that really forcing the QSR into the daily development practices of the device developing organization. And that's what this is all about. So what does it mean then? What kind of functionality is it? So of course we need to be able to generate a complaint that should be generated by the appropriate people in the organization. Typically incidents are reported by hotline support, the people who are in direct contact with patients or customers or clinics. And they should have the appropriate means to file a complaint. It might be an equipment service request. It might be a general inquiry or question. But they should be easily logged as inputs to a process. Also, in order for us to connect it with the adverse events reporting, we need to define the rules which act upon a set of complaints. Both we need to take care of trending. So if we have an event which is reoccurring, we should have the means to define that reoccurrence, track that reoccurrence. Additionally, if we have complaints which are severe enough, assume that there is death involved with the event or the complaint registration or the reported event for the complaint registered, or there is some severe injury related to that, then we need to file a report to the regulatory authorities. So these kind of rules we need to apply, and we need to have one set of rules for each and every market on which we are active. And based on these rules, we should, of course, initiate and trigger the appropriate report. It might be, as in this example, the FDA 3500A, which is a standard adverse event report. And of course, this should be automatically populated from the system to make sure that we build as much logic as possible into the system rather than assuming that the legislation is perfectly understood by our own organization or by the people who run this. So we should have the best possible support in the tools and the processes which we automate in our PLM solution. So that's the kind of capabilities, but one has to put, of course, complaints in the wider aspect. In the end, I mean, the complaint should trigger the appropriate actions, which, if they are severe enough, would typically be a CAPA. The CAPA in itself would typically lead to a change, which might involve one or many control documents, which will involve training activities, which will involve an implementation of a change or a new updated procedure, and which most likely will also trigger a change, an engineering change, which has to be taken care of properly. And accordingly, we need to have a mechanism which states that yes, this process or this change was implemented, and accordingly our CAPA is effective and our complaint can be closed. And that's when we can really act upon the complaints and confirm that we have followed up the complaints and we've fed back the information back into development and implemented the change in accordance with the initial analysis. So the kind of process in which this fits, we start off in the left-hand corner with hotline support, for example. Their challenge is typically to be able to easily and coherently understand what is the experience, what is the incident, and how what kind of concern is expressed, and do we have the appropriate information, and have we performed appropriate actions which we need to do in order to capture that if this is a qualified complaint, or what to do with it. So that's typically the starting point. The important part in that part of the process is to easily capture. So if I'm in hotline, I should have a tool, ideally a global tool, so I can sit anywhere in the world. I can register the complaint. It's done in one coherent way. Up front, I should have quality checks, which guarantees that the appropriate information is captured. So I don't have too much iteration between the hotline support and the quality department. Additionally, I shouldn't allow too much free text at this area at the capture, because I want to have repeatability. If it's a malfunction, it should be a malfunction, and whoever I am, it should be defined as a malfunction. It should not be any room for, or as little room as possible for misinterpretations in this area. So it's very important that the capture is easily done and quickly done. Then it typically goes through different channels to the quality lead, who is doing the actual initial assessment. The first kind of actions the quality lead will do is to understand, okay, is this a qualified event, yes or no? If there is missing information, make sure that that is captured in the easiest possible way. Then the question is, what kind of initial actions are required? And typically, we need to know if the customer or patient has been requested to resend their specimen on the product, so that we can perform a qualified and proper analysis on the actual product which had a failure or which failed. So that's really one of the first things we do. Then the quality lead will also determine, is there already a complaint filed for this product? Is this a recurring failure? Just to understand, do we already have an action in place to act upon this? And if so, have we already initiated a containment action to take care of the kind of issue we have? If not, I need to introduce perhaps specific quality controls, perhaps a concession, non-conformance, and do a registration for this to make sure that, okay, if we proceed this way, at least we have a high alert if these kind of issues do reoccur. After this, after I've done really the immediate actions, what I need to do as a quality lead is to determine what kind of actions are required now, what kind of tasks are supposed to be initiated, and who is supposed to do that work. Also, it's good to perform a fairly early assessment to judge, is this a supply chain issue? Is it due to, is it a design which is driven by the supply chain? Or is it our own development? And if so, is it an out-of-the-box issue, or is it something which can be isolated to its installation or to how it's been used? Just to understand as early as possible what are the potential sources, because that kind of analysis will determine what's the initial engineering analysis required here. Is it a fitting analysis, how it was installed? Or is it a design analysis, or is it a manufacturing analysis, or a supply chain analysis, which is really the fundamental core engineering analysis required here? So that's one initial task. The other important task is, as stated here, it's the event report. Do we really need to file a report? That's the first question. And if so, what kind of report should be filed? The third initial task would be the containment analysis. How do we make sure, how should we treat any stock which is already out at customers or patients? Should we trigger a recall? How urgent is this? How severe is this? And what kind of actions should we trigger? So these are the typical 3 tasks which I need to initiate and then route through my organization. In order to support this, especially the detailed investigation, I usually need to go back to my design controls and my IP. I might need to access my drawings, and this is really the true engineering work. So whatever details I have on the design, and whatever details I have on ongoing change projects or ongoing new development projects which are related to this component or this product, that information has to be reviewed. And that's why, or one of the reasons why, it's essential to have complaints and CAPA information immediately in the PLM backbone, to have this detailed information on my products at the tip of my fingers, so I can easily perform that analysis. For the event reporting, as pointed out, I want to have the detailed rules depending on market, so I can judge, should I file a report, yes or no? If a report is required, I want to launch that report, I want to access the PDF template of the report, and I want to populate that report directly from the system, because that's where I have all my detailed information. I don't want to regenerate that information. I really want to have that available as approved information within my PLM backbone. Additionally, in number 3 here, if the issue is severe enough, I will have the possibility, in line with our traditional CAPA procedures as part of PLM, I can launch a CAPA request, and I trigger that information, or I trigger that request directly from my PLM system. That is sent to Chris, the program manager in this example, and he can judge, are there available resources to initiate this CAPA? If there are resources and if it meets the regulatory requirements and the quality requirements, then good, go ahead with the CAPA, launch that process. And since we handle the complaints, the adverse event reports, and the CAPA in the same system, we have full traceability and can see exactly what kind of actions have been triggered before the CAPA. And we have full transparency between the complaints trending over to the CAPA, and where we proceed with our analysis. The detailed parts of the CAPA are the immediate actions following the approval of the CAPA. So of course it will involve the risk analysis. Since I'm working in the same environment as the design controls and where we have our drawings and details on the products, I can always go back and review my intentions with the designs and review my design controls, my requirements, my initial risk analysis, my hazards analysis, and pinpoint how did we perceive the hazards and risks at the time, and how does that really match the actual outcome with the complaints from customers and patients. So it's really giving me the best possible fundamentals to doing the detailed root cause analysis of this specific design or the specific concern I have. That will in turn trigger appropriate actions. Those actions can be reviewed with regards to resources, will be reviewed with regards to seniority in the engineering or regulatory or quality departments. These can be reviewed on web clients or any mobile clients, and all approvals are following typically Part 11 requirements. So the basic requirements for electronic signatures and approvals in any device developing organization. When we've gone through the procedure of the CAPA, we go back to the complaint and we close that automatically. So if I'm satisfied with the results, I have a dialogue within my complaints where I say the actual implemented effects, the actual implemented solution meet my complaints requirements. Those effects are validated, and I can now close the complaints altogether. So this is the overall process of which the complaint is a part of, and which the adverse event reporting is a part of. Really starting off in the initial capture of the complaint and going through a complete loop, including change management, including updates for control documents, including the full CAPA, pointing at the risk analysis and root cause analysis, all those parts which are typically triggered by a hotline support call and an event complaints registration. So that's the process. Why do we do this as part of PLM? Why not run it as a traditional QSR? So really the essence here is to do it as one version of the truth. Of course, doing this for process automation and doing any kind of data contents controls, following through the approval process for all the complaints details. And that will depend on how we've typed our product. So if we say that this is a class 3 or class 1 product, it determines the rules for the complaints analysis, and it determines the rules for our adverse events reporting on our different markets. And that's the kind of control we need if we are to do this in a fully automatic fashion. It's really also a closed loop to cover the feedback we get from customers and patients to the implemented change. And the whole essence is to provide the most feasible and fastest change loop from identified issue to that it's implemented. And it's to keep the complaints visibility, status, and history in everything we do in product development. So independent if I search for a part to put in my bill of material, or I check the status of an MDR, I should have clear visibility at any point in time on what's the status of the complaint, and what kind of impact does this have on my compliance status on my active products. So if I want to add a part, for example, or a component to my design, and there are relevant complaints and active adverse events reports on these related to these products or components, I should see that live in the system at any point in time to make sure that I'm not sourcing products which are on the risk of a recall or on the risk of being stuck in shipping due to a severe quality issue. So that's really how I build quality assurance into the product development process. Additionally, it's a question of transparency of the complaints all through the supply chain and the internal organization to determine the compliance risk. So if there is an issue on a complaint, I want to have the traceability not only to the product or the product line, I also want to trace it back immediately to the relevant supply chain. So those suppliers who are involved should receive complaint information as early as possible. Of course, I want to stay current with the product definition. So what does this mean? It means that whatever I connect with the complaint, I know that that's the current version of my product. It's always the latest revision, or it's always the relevant version I'm working on. So that's what we get when we connect the complaints with the P&M backbone. It's not only on the series number which we're referring to in the complaint, but we also have full transparency on the active product development products which are related to this specific complaint. We also want to connect it back to the design controls and to the IP to make sure that we really have the full engineering organization behind a decision on a complaint or a CAPA. And we also want to have the audit trail very visible to that engineering organization, so everyone knows what it was decided on this particular design, on this particular product, and we have that audit trail with us at any point in time. And as pointed out, we also want to auto-populate any regulatory reporting based on what product category we have defined or what risk class we have defined on the product. And assuming that we are defining the risk classes and the properties, the quality properties on our products as part of our P&M platform, which is common practice, then we also get a full set of rules to be able to auto-populate the eMDRs. So, in order to give you an idea, I'll go into the system and show you some of the functionality we have. I will primarily keep the demo close to the complaints functionality. Let's see if we have the time to go all the way to the CAPA and design controls. But otherwise, the functionality within the Inoga suite related to this is, of course, the complaints and the MCR modules. It's the CAPA and the design control modules. It's the control documents and the engineering change functionality. And of course, the EBOM, MBOM, and DMR functionality. Complaints process, or I would rather say the CAPA process, is a very cross-functional process. So it really involves every possible role within the organization. Let's see how far we can get in the complaints creation process, but we will at least touch upon the quality lead, the regulatory lead, and the product manager in their respective role, and of course also the Philip, the design lead. Okay. I'd rather jump into the demo environment. In the meantime, I've been thrown out, so let's see if we can log in again. So in this case, I'm a quality lead, and this is the standard view I will receive if I've selected the complaints power view or dashboard as my standard view. So in this view, I'll see all active complaints. In this case, I'm looking at unassigned. We could also focus on those in create state, and those in process. Just little updates. Typically when I work with the complaints, I want to have a quick understanding on what I have. As you can see, there are these ones here are links to the details of each and every complaint. I have one tab for maintenance requests or equipment service requests, one for inquiries, which are general questions, but let's focus on the complaints for now. In this dialog, I have their different severities determined by customer. So it's high or urgent or medium or low. I can see when it was received. I can get the contact details for whoever was reporting it to us. If required and determined to be reportable, it will be stated here, and you can see here that it might have been causing a disability or permanent damage, and you can understand then why it's reportable. If we have started work on this and it's still active work, not due yet, it will have a green icon. Whenever it gets close to its regulatory timelines, it will be highlighted as yellow, and if we pass the regulatory stipulated dates, it will be red. It have additional details, and it indicates which part of the organization where it's reported. In this case, I'm working within one business unit, and accordingly everything is reported here. As stated, we want to isolate the issue to a particular product as early as possible, and we want to have that transparency between ongoing development projects and product information immediately from the complaint, and that was a connection typically done when we filed the complaint. So current investigation status is ongoing, and what was our conclusion regarding the investigation. If properly set up, I'll have the cycle time in days, because that's something we need to track from a regulatory and QA perspective, and whoever is the owner here. When I work in this view, a power view, I typically work with my different filters. So here I can search for different aspects. Assume I'm primarily interested in highly severe events, so I easily filter out on that part. I can see that I've drilled down and limited the list to just 5 complaints. And I can see here that I have one issue, it's overdue, accordingly it's red. It's reported as a death related to my product. My product is an automated external defibrillator. So I might want to drill down into this specific complaint. If I want to know the details, I just select on the complaint. And then it's give me the details regarding what was reported, some overview information when it was modified, what's the severity. But it also gives me an analysis tree. The analysis tree is whatever is known on this complaint. And here we can see that there is an event reported on that specific complaint. Theoretically, it could be several. This one is then the complaint event, which is taken forward, and I've received additional information. So that's the primary event in this part, and I've determined that this is reportable. And of course, the reason here is that it's there was a death related to this complaint reported. I can see here that it's related to a specific product model. It follows the product definition in Innovia PLM, which is a product line, product model, an instantiated product. So if I expand this one, let's open this one up. I can always navigate further into this product definition here. I'll go into a specific version on this product, on this model, and here I can go into the details if I really want to understand this product. Okay. But I don't want to do that right now. We can also see here that we've generated a derived event, because this is something we need to act upon. There's a patient involved. There are patient details here, and it's related to this model, and that's why we have generated a derived event. And a derived event which needs additional analysis. So in this way, I can really drill down into the details of a complaint. So I'll reset this one. I drop my filter, and we'll go back to the initial view. I also wanted to show, assume that we have a complaint related to an ongoing development project. Let's see if we have it here. In this case, we have one version of this automated external defibrillator. We can have a connection to the ongoing development project. In this case, we see that it's really in early development. But this kind of direct link to the design controls give us a lot of information on the details of this design. Additionally, it gives us immediate input that, okay, there is a development project ongoing. Perhaps if I want to change related to this product, I should coordinate with this development project and make sure that it's aligned with whatever objectives we have for this new development. But we'll go back to the complaint view. Close this one down. So we had our different complaints, and we filtered down on the depth, and we reviewed this this complaint. So let's have a look at it once more. We had the different details down here on the particular event. And we have the details up here in the header. We have several different menus which we are using to analyze and act upon the complaint. The contacts will define whom I am in contact from a regulatory aspect on this, and I can track the correspondence with the regulatory body. The assignees are the people we want to assign for a decent complaint analysis. Returns and fulfillments will take care of the initial return on the complaint, making sure that I've addressed that and taken care of the return. And here I have the adverse events reporting. So based on the derived event on this complaint, I will judge what kind of reportability I have. And if the issue is severe enough, I'll trigger the adverse event reports, and I can generate that from this menu. And that will, of course, populate, read a template for the report, populate that template, and then if I've set up communication with FDA or any other regulatory body, it will generate the zip archive, the regulatory archive required for an electronic submission, an electronic MDR, to send that to the regulatory bodies. And as always with Enovia PLM, you will have the history where you can track what has happened with this specific complaint, all the specific details at any point in time. So this is really the audit trail. And you'll have where used information if you want to understand how it's related to other complaints or other processes. But where we start off is to generate a complaint. So that's in this menu here. I create a complaint, start a dialogue, and this would be true for example, if I'm a hotline support engineer or a field engineer. All the fields which are mandatory are marked with red as standard practice in Enovia. So assume that I have a formal letter written to me. It has high priority or customer severity. I'll use today's date as the awareness date. I can use auto-populate if I want to, depends on how I set it up. So this will just make sure if I'm a hotline support and I'm in a telephone with a customer, I really want to be as fast as possible. So then I typically want to have auto-populated fields in this kind of example. For the experience codes, I typically want to use existing experience codes we have. And here we have tools to import that information. That's also true for the issue codes. So in this case, we have an automated external defibrillator. And as you might have seen in the press lately, and I don't know about other European or Asian or US regulatory bodies, but here in Europe we've had quite some stir related to AEDs and the responsibility for maintenance of AEDs over the last few months. So this would be a good candidate for a complaint registration, assuming we have these kind of products in our product range. So in this case, we have an AED, and our example will be that the AED did not launch when switched on. It's probably a battery failure, but we don't make any assumptions. We will have auto-populate here as well. Here we can also have a connection between the product model, the model number, also the serial number, and that's of course important if we have multiple suppliers and we want to connect it to a particular serial number. It's important that we get the detailed feedback from the ERP or MPS system to make sure that we have the traceability we want on manufacturer, how the product was manufactured. If there's a patient involved, let's define a date for birth. Let's say that this is an 11-year-old. Let's say she was born in April, or on April 15th. It's a girl, and her weight is about 28 kilo. Who was reporting this in this example? And that's the representative at the clinic or at the hospital. So we assume that it's a Mr. James Aaron. Select that one, and we are done with our registration. When we're done, the complaint is registered in the system, but we're not making this public within the organization yet. There is still some initial settings to be done. So one of the things we did do was, of course, to set the contact, and in this case we have those logged under the contacts. I'm in the call. I also should report any returns or fulfillments, so I will actually do that. And also here I could use my auto-populate. In this case we might have a return number, so we might have that from already logged in the system. It's returned by UPS, and we received it already, and we're fine with the return goods. We also want to create some kind of compensation for returning that. So let's tract. It might be a, so we'll just we'll just fill this in, assume that it's correct. If I miss something, I need to so we might have a different contact here. I'm happy with this. So I get these details. I also want to have an idea about how I want to distribute the work related to this complaint within my organization. So in this case, I select the regulatory lead because I want her to do the regulatory report. I want to have Jennifer involved. She's the product manager, so she's to decide upon the containment. And I want to have a design lead involved, and I select these. Okay. The next thing I do is to define what kind of tasks do I want to have performed here. So I might have templates for this. So I have detailed investigation. I will give, say, a week for this, and I'll search among my assignees, and it will be Philip who does the engineering analysis. Review, design, manufacturing issue. And it might make sense to allow delegation here. Okay, I have some issues with my server here, but I assume you can follow how the tasks can be created. In order to for you to understand the connection between the complaints and the reportability, one need to understand how the task of reportability is generated and launched. What I'll do is I'll log out from this user, the quality user, and I'll log in as the regulatory user. As you can see here, it's role-based UI. So here I see my submissions instead. And typically what I have on so in this case I go to my task. And this assumes that I can create my tasks. When they are created, this is what they will look like. So I will have them as ordinary tasks in my inbox, and on that task I will also have a link to the actual complaint. So I'll have a link to the actual complaint, and since I'm a regulatory user, I have the menu adverse event reports connected to this. And in this case, I've run a decision tree. Should actually go to that menu. When I've done and triggered the analysis down here on the complaints, I generate a derived event, and that derived event will allow me to run a decision tree. The decision tree covers a set of predefined questions. So, do I want to file US FDA to the regulatory body in the US? Yes. If so, then I have additional questions. Did the device cause or contribute to death and serious injury? Yes, in this case it did. And I've answered no if it's supposed to be filed in Canada or in Europe. So depending on that, as soon as I've responded to those, it generates the appropriate adverse events template and makes this available. And if I've generated the MDR, I get this menu. I get this one highlighted as what I'm supposed to report. And as you can see here, this is what's been populated. So you can see some of the values here. I reported it as a girl and she had a certain weight. So all that is read from the system into this form. So these are all the details immediately read from the PLM platform, all registered on the complaint. So that was a quick introduction to the functionalities for generating a complaint, for creating the tasks required for initial complaint analysis, and then the line of thought from the complaint to the decision tree to the adverse events reports. So the whole essence of with this functionality is that we add the complaints information as well as adverse event reporting directly in the PLM platform, which really creates the foundation for a closed loop from the complaint to the CAPA to the change, so we can follow the complete analysis in the PLM platform. It's always connected to the ongoing product development projects and the relevant releases of our products. So we always have it connected where it matters and what we know, what's current. And we always have it connected back to the design controls on our development projects. So it's really powerful functionality to understand what is this really about and to drive an active change based on complaints input and to drive the reporting based on what we have actually filed as part of the complaint. So somewhat short finish off today, but really if you'd like to have more information, feel free to contact me on the contents of this functionality. If we have some time, it's 1 more minute to go, so let's see if there are any questions live. So no questions, immediate questions. If you would like to raise any question, please feel free to contact me on this address. This webinar will be present on our website later on today. There you can get all the details, and we will probably record a session which also covers the complete task creation. So it will be a somewhat longer recording than that you saw in the active webinar now. Okay, thank you very much for attending. Looking forward to the next webinar otherwise, which will happen in 2 weeks. That will focus on requirements management and how that is connected to our device development projects and to our DMRs and bill of materials. So really welcome you to that session. And otherwise, thank you very much for today. Thank you. Bye-bye.